Today we'll introduce sonata form. This is handout 1.06. I expect I'll need a couple of movies to convey the information. In the first part, I'll use to introduce sonata form and talk about the exposition, the first part of a sonata form piece. So the second movie, what I expect will be the second movie, will cover the development and the recapitulation and the introduction and the coda. So let's begin. Introduction to sonata form. Sonata form, scholars, is the most important large-scale instrumental form in the classical period. Nearly any multi-movement work is bound to have a sonata form movement in it. Sonata form you should think of as the classical era's most highly developed and complex compositional design. Sonata form can be said to have brought out a composer's greatest technical skills and, as many of us believe, music's expressive potential. The neat thing about sonata form is that its theory remains to this day a contentious topic, and if anything, we've seen over the last maybe dozen years, 15 years, an efflorescence, a renaissance if you would prefer, of writing about sonata form theory. And I myself wonder if this wasn't in part a reaction to the rise in the 1990s of the then new musicology. Well, that needn't concern us, but it is interesting how one thing maybe leads to another. Well, the standard parts of a sonata form piece. You remember these: the exposition, the development, and the recapitulation. Let's begin with the exposition. The exposition introduces the first tonal area and or the main theme, the home key, if you would prefer, for first tonal area. This main theme will most often, in fact, contain a conventional theme type, such as a sentence or a period, or perhaps a hybrid of the two. The main theme is firmly grounded in the home key. We might say a purpose of the main theme is to make the home key memorable, and the way it's made memorable is by the melody or tune that embodies the key. The main theme will end with a perfect authentic cadence or a half cadence in the home key. Either one. Keep this in mind. I have to confess I haven't seen a sonata form main theme that has ended with an IAC, but you should definitely take that for whatever it's worth. So, exposition, the first part of it is the main theme. Then there is the transition. Its most general purpose is to destabilize the home key. This destabilization is brought about most often, but not always, by a change of key. I will assure you, however, that all the sonata form movements that we analyze will have modulating transitions. Many transitions begin with material that closely resembles the main theme, and these are called dependent transitions. It follows, therefore, that transitions that begin with material that clearly doesn't resemble the main theme are called independent transitions. The transition ends almost always with a half cadence, a cadence on a root position dominant triad. Let me just mention, though, that half cadence, since all the transitions we'll be modulating, will be half cadences in the second key. So next we have the second tonal area, the subordinate theme. Unlike the main theme, the subordinate theme less often contains a conventional theme type. I should also add that subordinate themes, as a rule, are longer, sometimes much longer than main themes. Especially is this so when the second tonal area contains but a single subordinate theme. The second tonal area, check out its name, second tonal area, concentrates on a contrasting key, and this causes tonal conflict. Tonal conflict. I like to tell my students that the exposition of a sonata form movement is a place of tonal conflict. The harmony is at odds. There is a problem, you might say, a problem that must in some way be worked through and solved. Major key pieces, major key sonata form pieces, typically will modulate to the dominant. Minor key sonata form movements typically modulate to the relative major. Less often, but not infrequently, they will modulate to the minor dominant, the key of the minor dominant. Very important that you keep this in mind. A subordinate theme will almost always end with a perfect authentic cadence in the contrasting key. Why is that? Well, because the perfect authentic cadence is our most conclusive cadence, our most conclusive harmonic cadence. This perfect authentic cadence in the second tonal area really makes it clear that we've got conflict on our hands. Next, we can find a closing section. It immediately follows the subordinate theme. It is, to be precise, it follows, to be precise, the first satisfactory subordinate key perfect authentic cadence that moves on to different or contrasting material. Lates points out that the closing section may be much longer than the subordinate theme. Now, I'm going to qualify what I just got through saying here. I must qualify. And the important thing really that follows here on the annotated handout is not so much the first bullet point, but the second bullet point. First bullet point. In the classical era, the exposition is often repeated, so you might look for a double repeat sign. But this is the more important bullet, and since I have, a few minutes remaining in this movie, I'm going to see if I can just clarify a few things. While what I've mentioned above about the closing section is a faithful summary of Lates' position, William Rothstein's, Habakovsky, and others, some theorists, most notably William Kaplan, hold that sonata form expositions can have multiple subordinate themes, in which case the closing section follows the perfect authentic cadence of the last subordinate theme. And in truth, scholars, because I, your teacher, am persuaded more by Kaplan's view, I will teach you that a second tonal area can indeed have multiple subordinate themes, which we can indicate as ST1, ST2, ST3. All right. That's about what I'd like to cover for the first movie, but let me see if I can, just off the top of my head, go through, remind you of what's most important about an exposition. In the exposition, the first thing that we'll very often find is the main theme. The main theme is going to inhabit the home key, the first tonal area. This main theme, very often a conventional theme type, will end with a half cadence or a perfect authentic cadence in the home key. Next comes a transition. Refresh your memory on the difference between dependent and independent transitions. Regardless, in the transition, you'll find that the home key will be destabilized. In the sonata form movements we'll study, that destabilization will come about primarily by a change of key, from the home key to the second key, to the key of the second tonal area. Let's begin with major. In major key sonata form movements, that second tonal area, that key is going to be the dominant. In minor key sonata-form pieces, the second tonal area will be either the relative major, most often, or what's also quite possible, the minor dominant. We can have multiple subordinate themes, each of which typically closes. Let's say must close. Must close with a perfect authentic cadence, following which you can have a short closing section that essentially confirms the cadence. The exposition is a place of tonal conflict. All right, I think with that, we're ready to move on to our second movie, in which we talk about the development and the recapitulation.